currency of democracy, unquote. On that note, I would like to welcome you all to the fourth day of the one-week national workshop on right to information, a revolutionary law organized by the Center of Advanced Studies in Labour Welfare, Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab. Today, we are very fortunate to have with ourselves esteemed Professor Dr. Ajay Ranga. Presently, he is working as a professor of law at the Himachal Pradesh National Law University, Shimla. Prior to joining HPNLU Shimla, he was an associate professor of law at the University of Legal Studies, Punjab University. Sir has an expertise in criminal law, jurisprudence, right to information law, uh, law and justice in a globalizing world, and forensic sciences. Professor Ranga has presented around 60 research papers in different international and national and regional seminar and conferences, etc. He has published 30 research papers in different reputed journals of national and international repute with very high impact factor. His book, Crime Escalation and Slum Development, has been published with an international publisher. He has been invited as a panelist in national and international conferences and multiple primetime debates on different TV news channels for his expertise. He has been a fellow senator of the Punjab University, Chandigarh from 2012 to 2016, nominated by the Honorable Vice President of India, and from 2016 to 2020, elected from the Teachers Constituency of Punjab University. He was a member of Selections Committee for selection of coaching institutes for the grant of a central assistant for imparting free coaching to the students of the scheduled caste and other backward castes under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. He has been a member of the editorial board and member advisory board of many reputed research journals. He is subject expert on the panel of the Bar Council of India for granting approval to law departments, colleges, and institutes, etc. in India. Without causing any further delay, I would like to request sir to take the stage and enlighten us on the topic right to information, gateway to transparency. Sir.
Thank you, Devesh. Hope am I audible?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Uh, yeah, the task which has been assigned to me today is the right to information law, a gateway to transparency. I have to talk about the right to information law in India. Basically, my entire discussion will be bifurcated into three broad categories. One, initially, I will talk about very briefly about the historical development of the right to information law, how this right to information law came in India, what was the object behind. Thereafter, I would like to talk about what is the right to information law in India exactly. And then what are the practical problems which we are facing in the implementation of right to information law. And thereafter, I will keep the house open for the discussion or to clarify your doubts, your queries, your questions. So in this regard, first of all, I would like to start how this right to concept of right to information or the right to information came in the world. First time in the year 1776 in Sweden, this freedom of information was provided to the citizens. What is a rule? That official secret act is applicable everywhere. Means the official information cannot be provided to any person. This was the rule in the world, in almost every country in the world. Even in our country, we were having the official secret act 1923, due to which no information was supplied to any other person, information which was in the files of the office. First time in the year 1776 in Sweden, this right to information right was given to the citizen in the Sweden. And thereafter, in many countries in the world, this information or this right was provided. Today, if we look at the Transparency International Annual Corruption Perception Index, which shows that Denmark is the least corrupt country in the world. And if we talk about 5-6 top most least corrupt countries in the world, then Norway, Denmark, Switzerland, these are the countries. And again from the last 5-7 years, all these countries, they are being repeated. From the last 5 years, Denmark is top, the least corrupt country in the world. Then Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, these are the least corrupt countries in the world. Now the question arises, what is the reason behind why these countries are least corrupt and why other countries are most corrupt? If we look at the historical background of this right to information law in India, how this law came in India, then we can see the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution in the year 1948 declaring freedom of information as a fundamental human right. In the year 1948, right to information was declared as fundamental human right. Subsequently, Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in the year 1966 recognized people's right to have access to the official information. And India was signatory to this covenant. Means in the year first time, in the year 1966, India committed at international level to provide right to information to their citizens. Thereafter, first time in India, in the case of Raj Narayan versus State of UP, in the year 1976, Honorable Supreme Court held that right to speech and expression means right to know. And right to information is a fundamental right of its citizen under Article 19, subclause 1 of Indian Constitution. Thereafter, first political commitment to the right to information came up on the eve of Lok Sabha election in the year 1977. The Morarji Desai lead Janata Party government in the year 1977. In its election manifesto, he promised an open government where he said that he will not misuse any intelligence machinery of the state for his personal and political gain. And because of this big commitment to provide an open administration or open government, open government means the people will know, right? People will have the right to know what is there in the files of the government. And this commitment make the changes. He bring or he win the election with full majority. He formed the government, and after forming the government, he constituted a committee to see the possibilities to replace the provision of Official Secret Act of 1923, because this was the act which was creating hurdle to access to the information which is laying into the files of office or different files in the government official records. And unfortunately, the committee, which was constituted by Morarji Desai, that committee recommended no change. And here, the chance, hope to bring the transparency into the administration was closed down. Thereafter, in another case, SP Gupta versus President of India in the year 1982, Honorable Supreme Court again reiterated and said the disclosure of information in regard to the functioning of the government must be rule and secrecy an exception. Even then, again, in the year 1986, in the case of Kulwal Singh versus Jaipur Municipal Corporation, Honorable Supreme Court again clarify or give clear directives that the freedom of speech and expression provided under Article 19 of the Indian Constitution clearly implies right to information. As without information, the freedom of speech and expression cannot be fully used or exercised by the citizens. So it is required that there must be a freedom to know. And even after this, nothing happened in our country. On the other side, many organizations, for example, Anna Hazare, Anuradhiti Roy, and Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan of Rajasthan, and many more other organizations, NGOs, and social workers. They were agitating against the government. They were demanding for the implementation of right to information law in India. There were three different presses on the government of India. One was from the international side, the United Nations, where India was a signatory to the covenant and committed that in the year 1966 that we will provide freedom to the information to the citizens, but government of India failed to provide it. Secondly, the Supreme Court was again and again reiterating in different judgments, decisions for the implementation of right to information law, but the government was not doing. On the third front, the NGOs, social workers, they started agitating, they started revolt against the government. Anna Hazare, he sit on hunger strike. And due to that, the government of Maharashtra become bound to implement this right to information. So because of these three different corner pressures, center government was under pressure. And there was another big pressure. This Maharashtra government implemented this right to information law. Goa, Jammu and Kashmir, Karnataka, some governments, state governments, they implemented their own state right to information law. And this was again a defamatory for the central government. That the central government is not passing any right to information law, whereas the state government they have implemented. This was the fourth big pressure on the central government to bring this right to information law into the existence. And in that continuity, or because of these growing pressures, Government of India first time in the year 2002 bring Freedom of Information Act 2002. You might remember that when this act was brought into the existence, Anna Hazare, Arundhati Roy, Arvind Kejriwal, who is the Chief Minister of Delhi now a day, they again questioned the validity, authenticity, effectiveness of this Freedom of Information Act 2002. They said it is an ineffective law. It cannot provide the freedom of information. It cannot provide accountability, and it cannot be an effective way to the effective administration. And they flatly refused this law. And because of this, again, pressure, they started agitating against this also in Delhi. Because of this reason, the central government referred this law to the National Advisory Council. And the National Advisory Council, again, after going through this law, they recommended that this law be amended and repealed. On the basis of recommendation of National Advisory Council, this law was repealed, and in the year 2005, new law, which is known as Right to Information Act 2005, came into the existence. This is a very brief introduction about the historical development of the Right to Information law in India, how this law came into the existence. Now you can see from 1948, then 1966, where India was specifically the signatory of the covenant. 1966 to 2005, a long period of around 50 years, 45, 50 years, it took to bring this law into the existence in the country. Even after so many pressures, this law came into the existence. Now, after this, the question arises, what this right to information law is, what exactly it is. Now we will start talking about the right to information law, what it is, what are the different provisions, and what its meaning. As the Right to Information Act, the title given to this law, explain in itself, or self-explanatory, you can say, the right to information, right to know. Now the first question arises, what is information? What is information? That we know, we need to know first what is the information and which information can be provided, who can seek the information under right to information law, are the question which we are first going to discuss, and then we will discuss about the provisions. So first of all, what was the object of passing this law? There are three prominent objects. One, to provide the transparent, accountable, and to establish the rule of law was the object of this law. To provide a transparent administration, accountable administration, in which the wrongdoer, the government officials, they can be made accountable, they can be held liable for the wrong which they did. And to establish the rule of law, or establish effective administration by way of accountability, was the another object of the right to information law. Then the question arises, What is information? What is information? Information basically is any material in the form or which is in the files of a office. You can say the record, document, memo, email, opinion, advice, press release, circular, order, logbook, contract, report, paper, sample, model, data, material, emails, all are the part of information. Even a noting which is put on the file, that will be a part of information. So anything which is laying into the file, any information which is contained into the official record or the file is said to be the information. Now, because of this Official Secret Act 1923, earlier nobody was entitled except a class of people, a group of people. Nobody was allowed to access to the information. It is not that before passing this Right to Information Act 2005, nobody was entitled to have any information of the official report. As a matter of right, yes, it was there, but this right was confined to very few people. For example, Punjab University Act 1947 is there, through which this august institution was established in India. There, the right to information was given to the senators of this university under this act, even before independence. This act was passed before independence, even before our constitution. And this right was given to a particular group of people, or the powerful people, I would say. Similarly, the information which was laying into the official record of the government was within the access or limit of a very few people, a class of people, but not for the layman, a common man, a citizen of the country. So to provide them, to enable them to know what is there in the official record of the offices or files, this act was implemented and enforced. Now the second thing arises, who is the public authority? Who is bound to provide this information? And who is entitled to seek information under Right to Information Law? First of all, who is entitled to seek information? A citizen of India is entitled to seek information under Right to Information Law 2005. Only the citizen of India, not the person. Person means there can be artificial or a legal person. Natural and legal person, artificial person. A company, corporation, industry, that can also be a person, a legal person, but they cannot be citizen. A foreign nation, a foreigner, cannot seek information under Right to Information Law 2005. Company, corporation, and industries, they cannot seek information under Right to Information Act 2005. Only the natural, legal citizens, I would say the citizen of this nation, only they are entitled to know, or they have the right to seek information under Right to Information Act 2005. Then the question arises, the another question, who is bound to provide information? Who is bound to provide information? You might have heard there are so many organizations in which you file application to know, application relating to right to information, and they flatly refuse that we are not bound to provide information under right to information law. And sometimes we believe in good faith, or we can say because of lack of knowledge, that maybe they are not under this law. But I would like to clarify that any organization, any body, or any institution which has been established under the authority of the Constitution of India, or through any legislation, central or state, or any organization which is receiving any substantial funding from the government, central or state, is bound to provide information under right to information law. And because of this, the bodies own and controlled, own and own controlled or substantially funded by the central and state government are also the public authorities. Non-government organization substantially financed by the central or the state government are also the public authority, the NGOs and different organizations. For example, suppose a private hospital, if you file RTI against the private hospital, they will say that we are purely private organization and we are not bound to provide information under Right to Information Act. But it is not like that. They are getting number of concession, number of fundings to the government of, from the government of India and state government. For example, at the time of establishing the hospital, they receive land on concessional basis. They get approval, CLU, change of land use, on concessional basis. They get electricity on concessional basis. They get clearance from the environment, Department of Environment, Electricity, and so many other organizations of the state on the basis of, because their hospital and concessional rebate is given to them. This is another way to get the substantial funding from the state. Similarly, you might have observed that some private school, they don't provide any information under Right to Information Act. Even though they are bound to provide. Because the land which was allotted to them is on concessional basis. The approval which are given to them are on concessional basis. The electricity, water, whatever they are consuming is on concessional basis. And many more other facilities are also provided to them by central or the state government. And because of that reason, we can say they are also falling within the authority of state, and we can say that they are also public authority and liable to provide information under Right to Information law. They are bound to, they cannot refuse it. Private universities, nowadays the mushroom growth of the universities, they again said, yes, we are not bound to provide information because we are purely private managed organizations. No, they all are established through the State Act. And because of that reason, they are getting approval or authority from the state to do or not to do something. Due to that reason, again, they fall within the category of the public authority and bound to provide information to the applicants. Then of this, what is the information? Who is bound to provide information and who is entitled to seek information is, I think, clear to you all. Now, I would like to share a structure with you all, and then we will start discussion about this one. Uh, just a minute, please. Yes, please. Is this screen or the shared document is visible to you?
Yes.
Okay. See, is this cursor visible to you, which is moving on the screen?
No, sir. So the screen is visible, but the cursor is not visible. We can see the chart.
Okay. If you can see the chart, I would like to explain this chart, and then we will go ahead. Now, see, this is the entire structure of right to information system in our country. See this one, the top one, CIC, Central Information Commission. On your left, you will see the central government organization and departments. We have two types of organizations and the departments in our country. One, the central government departments and the state government departments. And in both the cases, we can file the right to information application, RTI applications. Now, see the first one on your left side, the central government organization and department, the structure of RTI which is applicable and which is in existence in the central government and departments, and on your right side the state government organization oblique departments. Whatever is the structure of right to information in the state government organization, institutions and department is that. Now the first one, the last. From the state we will start and then we will come to the central, or simultaneously I would explain both the things. See, SAPIO, is it visible to you? The last on your right side. SAPIO means State Assistant Public Information Officer. He is the last person or the small key person, you can say, in the right to information law who is not responsible for anything. He is the person who is appointed on the recommendation and request of this SAPIO, State Public Information Officer. I would like to clarify this thing, that in state, when we call or file application in the state organization, then we call the public information the state public information, but practically we maximum people write public information officer. But whereas for both the organization, state and center, we have the different designations. In case of the central information, central government departments, it is Central Public Information Officer. Second to the bottom on your left side. And in case of the state, it is State Public Information Officer. But generally, people used to write Public Information Officer in both the cases. So first of all, on your right side, State Assistant Public Information Officer, he is the person who has to run here and there from one table to another table to collect the information for Public Information Officer in reference to the application file, to know the reality or to know what is there in the files of office. That is, State Public Information Officer will request to the other appropriate senior officials that I need a assistant who can help me to collect the information, because the Public Information Officer, he cannot run here and there every day to collect the information. He will just send the information and send this person to get it for him. Though the Public Information Officer is the key person to whom application under Right to Information Act is, addressed. Whatever information you want to seek, then you have to write an application to the State Public Information Officer if it is in state government department, or if it is in central government department, then the Central Public Information Officer, that is on your left side. Similarly, as we are having this State Assistant Public Officer in the state, similarly we are having the Central Assistant Public Information Officer in the central government as well, who will there to assist Central Public Information Officer, who is the key person, who is bound to provide information to the applicant. Now, first of all, the question arises, if any application is filed or addressed to the State Public Information Officer or to the Central Public Information Officer, within which particular time period they are bound to provide information. See, there are two types of information. One, information which is relating to the life and liberty of the person is to be provided within 48 hours from the time of filing the application. If any information is relating to the life and liberty of the person, then that information has to be provided by the Public Information Officer, the State and Central Public Information Officer, within 48 hours from the time of filing the application. Generally, you might have observed, seen in movies, during terrorism in Punjab, police was kidnapping or taking the of people and even was not telling anything about them. No information was given to the family members. Now, under such circumstances, if suppose a person has been arrested by the police and no information about his whereabouts is given to the family members, then in that case, the family member are entitled to file a RTI in the SSP office police station to know the whereabouts of the person who has been arrested by the police within 48 hours information. And sometime, for example, sometime it happened that every government department is almost having the panel hospitals. Suppose a government employee reached to a hospital for routine checkup, and there he met with an or unfortunately faced heart attack. There the hospital said, we have to operate you, and that will cost around 25 lakhs. A government employee cannot arrange this much big amount, but he can know, he is having right to know that which hospital in this area is on the panel of my department concerned, which will provide me cashless facility of operation or treatment. And generally the department will not tell. In that case also the person will file a RTI to the hospital or to the department, and the department is bound to provide this information within 48 hours because it is relating to the life and liberty of the employee. They are bound to provide this information within 48 hours, so that there are two types of information. One, the information relating to the life and liberty of the person is to be provided within 48 hours, and the general information which is laying into the official record of the offices, organization, institutions, that will be provided within 30 days from the day of filing the application. But here there is a flaw. If suppose a RTI, a person want to know the information about the colleges in Patiala district, and he is living in Amritsar, he want to know that how many government colleges are there in Patiala, how many government colleges are having Bachelor of Science, how many teachers are there, how many qualified teachers are there in these colleges. And instead of filing this, he want to know the information about Patiala district, and he filed this application to the Amritsar or public information officer of education, higher education department in Amritsar. And in that case, the information relating to his application is not within the possession of the public information officer to whom he has submitted the application. Means application is submitted or given to the wrong person. But here that does not mean that this person will not do that or will not take appropriate action. This wrong person or public information officer, he will read this application within 5 days from the day of receiving the application and will send this application to the appropriate person who is in possession of this information, and will inform to the applicant as well that you file this application to the wrong person, and so is the right person. Your application has been transferred to that person. Now you can seek your information or collect your information from the public information officer of higher education, Patiala. Now, because of this flow, now the time period to provide information will extend for another 5 days. And in that case, the total time period to provide information with reference to a journal information will be 30 plus 5, total 35 days. This 5 days will be a casualty period because of filing right to information application to the wrong person or wrong public information officer. So the public information officer is bound to provide information if information is relating to the life and liberty of the person within 48 hours, or if information is general in nature, then 30 days, or if application is filed to the wrong public information officer, then in that case it will be 35 days. 48 hours, 30 days and 35 days is the limitation period to provide the information to the applicant. Is this clear? Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Anybody having any doubt about it? Thereafter, if suppose the information supplied by the public information officer to the applicant, there are 3-4 conditions. Either no information is supplied to the applicant by this state or central public information officer to the applicant. No information is given till the time of 30 days or 35 days. In that case, the applicant will become eligible to receive entire information free of cost. After passing 35 limitation period of 35 days, the entire information will be provided to the applicant free of cost. Whatever will be the amount, not even a single penny will be charged from the applicant. Or if information supplied by, first condition, no information is provided. Secondly, where the information is provided but partially right, partially wrong, or where the partial information is provided, or where information is provided but not at the satisfactory level of the applicant. Under all these 4 circumstances, the applicant will be entitled to file appeal to the first appellate authority. You can see on your both side FAA is written. That means first appellate authority. First appeal will be filed to them. Now, there will be a limitation period in which this appeal is to be filed. Within the period of 30 days from the day of receiving the information, or from the day of expiring the period of 30 days in which the public information officer is bound to provide the information. From that day, within the period of 30 days, first appeal can be filed to the first appellate authority designated in every department. For example, in university structure, the registrar is first appellate authority in every university. And the registrar or the vice chancellor, they have designated different people as public information officer. In big universities like Punjab University, where more than 80 departments are there, generally the chairperson or one of the professor is designated as public information officer in the department concerned, and the registrar of the university will be the first appellate authority. Now here, the first appeal will be filed within the period of 30 days from the date of receiving partial, wrong, or incomplete information, or from the day of the last day of information, that is after expiry of 30 days. You can file the first appeal within 30 days to the first appellate authority. Now here, the first appellate authority is bound to decide the application of the applicant within 30 days from the day of receiving the application, or under any circumstances, this time period cannot extend more than 45 days. 15 days if got delayed, then the first appellate authority has to record what was the condition, what was the reason why this appeal was not disposed of or decided within 30 days. Means 30 days in a normal time period to decide the first appeal, or which can be extended for another 15 days but with recorded reason. Otherwise, the first appellate authority can be held responsible for causing delay. Similarly, if the party or applicant is not satisfied with the decision of first appellate authority, then again, the applicant is having right to file the appeal to the State Information Commission in case of the state government departments, and that appeal is to be filed within 90 days from the last day of receiving information, or from the day of received wrong information, partial information, unsatisfactory information. Means within 90 days, appeal is to be filed to the State Information Commission or to the Central Information Commission against the order of the first appellate authority by the applicant. Now here, the legal proceedings will be started. And whatever will be the outcome or the decision of state or the Central Information Commission, State Information Commission. If the person is not satisfied with the decision of the State Information Commission, in case of the state organizations department, then he has the right to approach to the Central Information Commission for redressal of his grievances. On the other side, in case of the central government departments, against the decision of first appellate authority, the direct appeal will lie to the Central Information Commission. And whatever will be the decision of Central Information Commission will be binding on the parties. But if either party to the dispute is not satisfied with the decision of Central Information Commission, because if they have reason to believe that Central Information Commission is not complying with the provision of this act, and if they are not satisfied because of this reason, then in that case they have the right to file appeal against the order of Central Information Commission to the concerned state high court. If suppose, for example, the applicant is from state of Punjab, he file application under right to information law in the state government department. He went to the Central Information Commission where the order was passed, but he is not satisfied. Then he has the right to file appeal against the order of Central Information Commissioner into the State High Court of State of Punjab and Haryana High Court, Chandigarh. If the person is from Jammu and Kashmir, and he is not satisfied with the decision of Central Information Commission, then he can go to the Jammu and Kashmir High Court against the order of Central Information Commission. Similarly, if the person is from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, then in that case they can go to their own high court against the decision or order of Central Information Commission. This is the broad structure of the right to information in our country. Now, there are two things. Central Information Commission, the structure of Central Information Commission will be, there will be one Chief Information Commissioner and 10 information commissioners in the Central Information Commission. Their tenure will be 5 years or up to the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. A person who was appointed as Information Commissioner can also be reappointed as Chief Information Commissioner. But otherwise, generally, no second term is given. It applies on both the cases, State Information Commission and Central Information Commission, both. In state, there will be a State Information Commissioner, one person will be State Information Commissioner, and 10 information commissioners will be there in the State Information Commission. Again, similarly, 5 years term, 65 years of age, whichever will be earlier. Now, this law was effective initially, but nowadays, day by day, this law has been diluted. There are two reasons of dilution of this law. One, the manner of appointment of information commissioners. They are being appointed politically. See, the law, what law says, that there will be a committee of 3 persons who will appoint the information commissioners. And who will be these 3 people? One, the chief minister of the concerned state, and there will be a cabinet minister. The second one will be the cabinet minister who will be nominated by the chief minister. Practically speaking, this cabinet minister will be the closest person of the chief minister. And the third one will be the leader of opposition. Whatever will be the situation, whether the leader of opposition or one person to these 3 is happy or not happy with the name of any person, will be appointed if there will be a consent of the chief minister, because the cabinet minister generally cannot dare to go against the wishes of the chief minister. And it happened in the state of Haryana when Bhupender Singh Hooda was chief minister. He appointed some of the bureaucrats who got retired from the state, who was working with him, and he appointed them as information commissioner. The former chief minister of Haryana, Om Prakash Chautala, was the leader of opposition. He was not agreed to the names, but even then they were appointed. Means politically connected people, they are being appointed as information commissioner. Practically, that is the biggest problem. Irony of the system. Secondly, earlier the remuneration, salary, tenure security of the information commissioner was equivalent to the election commissioner of the state and central. But last year, the central government amended this law and said the central government will decide about the salary, boxes, tenure of the central and state information commissioners. Now, because of this, the information commissioners cannot take any decision on their own against the government, because any time their tenure can be declared over. They can send a message, your services are no more required tomorrow onward. Means there is no security of tenure, there is no security of salary and boxes and facilities. Because of that reason, a information officer or information commissioner cannot take independent, impartial decision, because the key to control them is in the hand of central government nowadays after this amendment. So the effectiveness of this law somewhere has been diluted. It has been diluted. Now, apart from this, now the question arises, what are the provisions under which the information can be refused to the applicant? Or if you explain, I would like to tell you how to write a right to information application. Maximum people do not know how to write a application to know the record in files. And generally, maximum application are being refused by the information officers, that no such information is available with us. Though right to information law do not provide any specific format of any application. There is no specific format. They just want a simple application must be written to the address to the public information officer, state or center. You can write a very simple application as we have been writing to the sick leave application to the principal in our school. There we have to write to the state or central public information officer, the address of the public information officer, and then subject. In subject, you have to write seeking information under Right to Information Act 2005. Then, respected sir or madam, you are humbly requested to provide the following information under Right to Information Act 2005. Then start writing your questions, the information you want to know, which you are seeking from. But here is the technicality, how to write and what to write. For example, if suppose a person want to know, a person has been transferred from one place to another place. The person who is a resident of Patiala has been transferred, for example, a school teacher has been transferred to Gurdaspur, and he is so annoyed. He want to know that why he has been transferred. In his right to information application, generally what the people do, he asks why I have been transferred from Patiala to Gurdaspur. Provide me the reason. And in lieu of, in return to this application, the public information officer will write, we do not have such information in our official record. That's it. That will be the answer to his application. But here, instead of writing why, what and why, we cannot ask anything to them in a question form, because no such information is available into the official report. Rather, he should write, kindly provide me the transfer policy of the state government of my department. And then he has to read under which clause my transfer has been made or done. Or if it is not, then he can challenge that I was not falling within any provision of the transfer policy of the state, which is wrong. And even then I have been transferred, that is wrong. There he can challenge his transfer. But he cannot ask in a question form why I have been transferred. What and why cannot be asked. And they are not bound to reply on behalf of you. Secondly, the public information officer or any person who is in possession of the information is not bound to do research on behalf of the applicant. Sometime you might have seen the PhD scholars. They file RTI to the concerned departments. For example, if a student is doing PhD in education department, he file RTI to the school DO, district education officer in school. He said, how many government schools are there in the district Patiala? How many schools are offering science stream in +1 and +2? How many teachers are there in this school? What are the qualification of these teachers? When they have been appointed? And kindly provide me this information in a table form. There, that means the public information officer has to do a research and has to provide information in a table form, for which the public information officer is not bound. They can flatly refuse that no such information is laying in our official record and we cannot provide it. On the other hand, this applicant should write that kindly provide me the document relating to the how many schools, relating to all the schools within the jurisdiction of Patiala district, government schools, and the school offering the science stream in +1 +2, and the appointment letter of the teachers with their qualifications. Though it is a third party information, but it is up to the public information officer. He may or may not provide this information to the applicant. So don't write any question in your right to information application in what and why form, because that will not be answered. And public information officer is not bound to do any kind of research on behalf of applicant. After writing this application, one application should not be more than 500 words. After writing this application, there are two commitments which every applicant has to make. One, that I am a bona fide citizen of this country. Secondly, required fee for this information has been paid. Void check, draft, postal order or any other electronic mode if it is offered by the concerned department. And the number of check, number of postal order is to be mentioned in the application. And thereafter, in the end, which majority of applicant facing problem is relating to the disclosure of their identity. Maximum RTI applicant don't want to disclose their identity. In that case, instead of writing their name, they can just put regards X, Y, Z, whatever they want to write, if they don't want to write their name. But the address where they want to receive information must be correct. That should not be wrong. Whatever address it is to be mentioned there. You can, if you still want to hide your identity, you can purchase a post box in any postal post office, and you can give that address there, that this information should reach to this post box office, or any address of your friend, your known people, where the information will reach. And after receiving this application, this public information officer has to calculate everything, that how much expenditure will incurred on this application. We have to get the document photo state, and if suppose every page, a 3 size page will cost 2 rupees per paper, and accordingly the total pages will be calculated, money will be calculated, and this information will be given to the applicant that your information is ready with us, kindly deposit this much amount in lieu of this information and get the information. Now, every application, with every application, a person has to pay 10 rupees fee. And if you want to seek information in any CD or floppy or pen drive, then in that case, it will cost you 50 rupees per floppy per CD. Now, initially, when this act was applied or implemented, there was no such application fee was implemented. It was totally free of cost. And some people started misusing it. One of the beggar in Bombay, I'm telling you the real story behind this reason. A beggar in Bombay, he got this right to information law. He was educated person. He read this information law in completely. Then he arranged a typewriter pages and started typing and sending these applications, right to information applications, to the different departments of the government. He chose 5-6 department, and entire department was remaining busy for entire month for collecting information for him. He was receiving information in bundles. Entire department remained busy. All the people were knowing him. Every day, every second day, he was coming to the department, giving another application for information and collecting different bundles of pages. Then the people started thinking that what he is doing with this huge information. When they chased him, then they came to know that this person is not even opening the bundle. He is taking to the shop and selling it to the market. And whatever he is getting in lieu of that, he is surviving on that money. Then they recommended to the government that this is the one person who has hanged 5-6 department of the Bombay. If like him 5-6 people will be there in Bombay, then they can choke the entire capital, business capital of the country. So there must be some check and balance so that the people should not misuse this law. And because of that reason, this rupees 10 in nominal amount fee was imposed on per application. Maximum word should be 500 in every application. Thereafter, Section 8 of this Act, Section 8 and 9 of this Act, they explain two things: that the information which cannot be supplied to the applicant. Section 8, 9, and 24 of this Act are the provisions or acts which are dealing that information cannot be provided to the applicant with reference to this. Now, first of all, if we look at the Section 8, Section 8 exemption is talking about the exemption from disclosure of information. There are different 10 points A to J under Section 8 under which the information cannot be supplied to the applicant. And what are those? See, any information which would prejudicially affect the sovereignty and integrity of nation of India cannot be supplied. Section 8, clause B says the information expressly forbidden by the court to be published or by tribunal cannot be supplied. For example, sometime in rape cases or media trial, the court instruct the media not to publish any information or not to supply any information. Sometimes it is instructed to the departments. Till the case is pending, no information can be supplied. So when any information is prohibited by the tribunal or the court cannot be supplied. Then the clause C of the same act explain the disclosure of which would breach the privilege of parliament and the state legislature. That information cannot be supplied. The another provision, clause D, explain the information including commercial confidence, the trade secret, intellectual property, etc. cannot be supplied to the applicant. Then clause E that talk about the information of fiduciary relationship that cannot be supplied. Then F, information received in confidence from foreign countries cannot be supplied. Sometime you might you might remember that the central government was committing before they came in power in 2014 that all black money we will bring to the India. Indian government is having knowledge or information about the people those who are having black money, but government is not disclosing their name in public. Reason being because of this rule that they have committed to that bank, Swiss bank, that we will not disclose their name to the public. And that information was supplied by the Swiss bank to the government of India under a confidence. And if confidential information has been received from any foreign country or government organization, that cannot be supplied. Then the Section 8 clause G, a very important, under which maximum application are being rejected, that is the information which can endanger the life or physical safety of any person cannot be supplied. Any information which can endanger the life and physical safety of the person cannot be supplied. Sometime due to the matrimonial dispute between husband and wife. Sometimes wife or husband both, they file RTI application in their office when she is reaching to the office, when she is leaving the office, with whom she is coming to the office, with whom she is leaving the office. Similarly, wife is also filing this application. What is the residential address of so and so person? By which way he is reaching to the office? At what time he reached to the office? At what time he leave the office? There they can say, yes, we cannot supply this information because they may put his life and liberty into the danger. And generally, maximum information are denied under this provision. Then section 8 subclause J in said information which impede the process of investigation. Generally, it is believed during investigation no information is supplied. And under this clause, this act, this section, it is clarified that during investigation no information can be supplied which may impede the process of investigation. Then the another restriction, that is subclause J, the cabinet papers including the record of deliberation of the Council of Ministers, secretaries and others. Unless and until these documents are finalized, they cannot be supplied under right to information because they are half-baked food which cannot be served. They are just deliberations. Then the last point of this section is, that is J, information which relate to the personal information or which has no relationship to any public activity, interest, or which unwanted invasion of the privacy of individual cannot be supplied. Sometime, for example, they started asking, what is the name of his father, mother, how many siblings they are, where he is living, what is the income of his father, what is the income of his mother, his brothers, sisters, how much property he is having. Some of the information cannot be the part of official report. And some of the information can be the part of official report but not be necessary. And such information cannot be supplied to the applicant by the public information officer. Apart from this, section 9 of the same act is defining any information which is violating the provision of copyright cannot be supplied. For example, suppose a book is costing, or price of the book is 1 lakh rupees and available in the library as well. The person cannot buy the book. He will file RTI to the librarian and will say, a book of so and so writer with so and so title is available in your library. Kindly provide me a certified copy of that book. This application will infringe the right to copyright, and such informations cannot be supplied. Apart from this, section 24 of the same act is prohibiting the information about different organization of second schedule. There are around 25 different organizations of the country which are dealing with the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. information about these organizations cannot supplied to any person under section 24 of this act. Apart from this, you might have heard that when this law or this act came into the existence, people were, threatened because of this law. The most effective part of this law is that the form of punishment which will be given in lieu of violation of this provision. If suppose you are the RTI officer, the public information officer, applicant want to file RTI against you, and he does not know how to write the application, then he will ask you to write application against you and provide me the information. And in that case, RTI officer, this public information officer, is bound to write application against himself on the instructions or advice of the applicant who cannot write this application. And if the RTI officer, the public information officer, will not do it, then it will be presumed that the person is creating hurdle in providing the information to the applicant, and that will be considered in violation of this law. Or where the information is provided wrong information, partially right, partially wrong, or no information is supplied, or if this public information officer at any stage of the proceeding is found guilty, or if it is proven that intentionally this person did not supply the information to the applicant or supplied the wrong information or partial wrong information, under such circumstances, this RTI officer can be penalized, or rupees 250 per day fine can be imposed on him till the final supply of information to the applicant. And this fine of 250 rupees per day cannot extend more than 25,000 in one case. And this rupees 25,000 maximum, 250 per day, will be charged from the pocket of that public information officer, not from the government account. Because of this threatening law, this rigorous law, or in addition to this, if suppose a person is found guilty, in addition to the monetary fine, the appropriate competent authority can instruct his or her concerned department to take appropriate action against this public information officer who is found guilty for not supplying the information, or supplying intentional wrong information, or creating hurdle to get the information. And in that case, this letter does not mean a letter has been sent by the appropriate authority to take action against the public information officer. That department has to take action and inform to that public authority that this particular action has been taken against this public information officer. Action may be passing a censure, fine, stoppage increment, or whatever kind of punishment can be given by the department, but punishment must be given to him. Otherwise, that public information, that public authority to whom the letter has been sent to take action, against whom the action will be taken by the Public Information Commission. So all authorities, they are bound to take action. They cannot ignore it. They cannot just violate it. This is all about the RTI, right to information law. The house is open for any discussion, any question, any query, any doubt, whatever you have about this law. You can ask, please.
Yeah, hello, doctor.
Hello, please.
Yeah, hello. The question is about filing a RDA if you go the wrong PIO in case of life and liberty of the
Sir, your
person.
your
What
voice
is the
is
time limit?
your voice is not clear, please.
Okay, can you hear me now? Better?
Yeah, sir, you are not properly audible.
Okay. Sir, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you are audible.
Okay, the question is about filing RTA before the wrong PIO in case of life and liberty of the person. What is the maximum time limit?
Actually, there are two rule and regulation with reference to this. One is
Okay.
relating to the guidelines for implementation of RTI law that is available on even in on internet as well. And another one is RTI rule 2012. No such specific time limitation is given with reference to the information relating to the life and liberty. Under those cases, within 48 hours, the person has to supply the information, even if the RTI is filed to the wrong person.
Okay. Thank you.
Because RTI limitation period is very small, 48 hours. It is believed that the RTI officer immediately will look into or read the application and will send it to the appropriate person.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, sir. I am audible.
Yeah, you are audible.
First of all, thank you for such a great information lecture which is given by you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question related to a section 8D of RTI Act.
8D.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, what type of situation that can be called which satisfy the large public interest under section 8D?
Section 8D is not talking about the public interest.
Sir, it's talking about the IPR.
Section 8D is talking about the information including commercial confidence, trade secret, intellectual property, etc. That information cannot be supplied.
But sir, unless it is included in a section 8D, and there is a last line which say, unless the situation satisfy the complaint authority, which include a large public interest.
See, there are two things in this case. Large public interest means if suppose there is a rivalry between the Mukesh Ambani telecom business and the Tata Docomo. Both are into telecom business, but one person is flourishing like anything and the another one is not. So Tata Docomo, they may ask to the try that what are the trade secrets of Mukesh Ambani's business, why he is flourishing like anything and why I am not growing. And the business strategies, the businessman has to supply it or provide their strategies sometime to their approving authority. And this kind of information, that what are the strategies, what are the mechanism, what is the technology specifically which he is using, that cannot be made public. Name of technology can be, but the design of the technology cannot be disclosed unless and until you see. Few days back there was a question arising that because of this 5G trial, the animals,
Yes.
birds, they were dying, and this 5G range were causing damage to the human life as well, or human body. So in such cases, because it is in a large public interest which is causing damage to the humanity, under those circumstances, if it will be proven that because of the trial of 5G by Airtel or by this Tata or Reliance Communication, under those circumstances, that if it will be proven that this loss is being caused because of the trial of 5G, under those circumstances, they will be bound to disclose, otherwise they cannot disclose it.
I understand, sir.
Any other question, please?
Yes, sir. Sir, what type of information we get under section 11 about third party?
Any kind of information, whatever you like to know, and whatever will be the part of official record, you can seek from the third
Sir,
party.
about
But there is
Yes,
a
sir.
question about the third party information. There is a process of third party information, that the
Yes, sir.
public information officer has to inform to the third party that so and so person is seeking this particular information about you, whether we should supply this information or not. Generally, people say no, don't supply this my information to any other person. But the final decision will be taken up by the public information officer. Even after the refusal by the third party, the information can be supplied to the applicant. If the public information officer is satisfied that it is not going to harm in any case, in any way, to the third party, this information can be supplied even after refusal by the third party.
Thank you, sir. No more question I have.
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. So I request the moderator to ask the questions in the chat box.
The question from Ms. Parabjot Kaur is that, sir, it's related to the structure of RTI. That a POI is called a state POI, not just PIO. But if at a state level, an institution, a school, or any other organization has appointed some person, for example, generally their employee, to act as a PIO, then should he also be called a state PIO, or what is the?
See, designating any person as a PIO is a process. The state government notify the name or designation of PIO in their official gazette. That does not mean that any official will issue a letter and the person will be designated as PIO. No. PIO is notified in official gazette by the government, and that cannot be changed by any other person. So whosoever is designated by name or by post as public information, the application must be addressed to that person by designation.
Thank you, sir. So there is another question in the chat box. In case of payment of the fine that is imposed, is it the PIO or the higher authorities that pay this fine?
No, it is the PIO who has to pay from his pocket, because it is believed that whatever problem has been created by way of not supplying the information well in time, or by supplying wrong information, or by supplying partial right information, that is because of the fault of the public information officer. Because public information officer is given the powers of a civil court, that he can compel any person who is in the possession of the information to bring the information to him, the record to him. And if he do not exercise this power, that means he is they presume that that means the person intentionally not interested to provide information to the applicant, and that's why this person will suffer loss from his pocket, not from the state exchange. And that's why this public information officer by force providing information to the others so that the money will not be paid from his pocket.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have another question from Neolika. If you could unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. My name is Neolika, and my question to you, sir, is that all information that is held by the government bodies is public in principle. So, but the information that can be withheld, only a narrow set of legitimate reasons are set forth in international law and as well as codified national law. So, sir, can you tell us something about what are these set of limitations under international law?
See, in case of international law, there is no limitation in India.
Okay.
Because if we will follow such things, then there will be a question of the integrity and sovereignty of the nation. We give our consent to provide this law in the 1966 to the United Nations, but we did not enforce it or applied it. So there is no such international limitation on supplying information. Rather, international organization and provisions, they want that maximum information should be disclosed and should be made public, so that the people should not file RTI applications. And even this law, this RTI law in itself is saying that maximum information relating to a particular organization must be available for public, so that they should not file RTI. You might have seen. See, for example, the website of your university or your organization is containing entire information about the structure of the university, about the faculty of the university, about the facilities available in the university, about everything. Maximum information is available. It is not because that we want to give it. It is because this RTI law is compelling us to provide this information. So there is no limitation on international from international law. It is the limitations are from the RTI law only under section 8, 9, and 24.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
So we have one last question from Paramjeet Singh. He's asking, the recent amendment diminishes the status of the CIC, SCIC, and IC from that of the Supreme Court judge. Will this impact or lower their authority in any way to issue the directives to the senior government officers?
See, no doubt, the recent amendment, to my understanding and my belief, is going to cause huge damage to this RTI law. This law was basically enacted, enforced with the object to provide transparent, accountable, and efficient functioning of the government. And that can be only possible when the people, those who are there, the RTI commissioners, if they will work fearlessly, impartially. And if a person is having fear, every day he's sitting on chair with a fear that if he will pass any order against the government, tomorrow he can be removed. Or his paxes, his car, his facilities, that can be withdrawn. Then with this kind of threat, no one can be worked fearlessly, impartially, and strongly, transparently. So I'm of the view this amendment will certainly cause damage to the object, efficiency, transparent, and accountable functioning of this law. Anything else? Anybody who like
Hello,
to ask
yes.
any other question, please?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I am having one question. This section 8, in section 8, we cannot give personal information. So in most of the cases, we are seeing that government departments are employing contractors, as in PWD and major projects, everywhere there are contractors. So if we want to know the information of contractor, will it be dealt as a third party information?
See, no, there is a contract between the government and the contractor. That is a public document. That is not information relating to the third party. Third party information is information relating to a individual person, the private person. If suppose you are working in some department, if I file a RTI that kindly provide me the 10th class DMC copy of this man, 12th class DMC copy of this man, his family details, that will be personal information. Whatever you are talking about, that is a document which is a contract and which is in public domain, which is not a private document.
Okay, yeah, if you want to know the details of his work allotted to him or money paid to him, that can be concealed by RTI.
That cannot be concealed by RTI.
Okay,
That has to be supplied by the concerned department. They can't disclose it because they are dealing with the public money. They are having public document, and that is a part of official record, and that the authorities has to supply to the applicant. They can't hide it. And Section 8 is not disclosing. Section 8 is not putting any kind of limitation on providing such information.
okay, thank you.
Yes, anybody else? Any other question, please?
So these were all the questions for today. Now I would request Tulika to give vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to all. On behalf of Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Ajay Ranga sir for taking out the time to interact with the students on the right to information, a gateway to transparency. The students have been greatly benefited from your thoughts and insights, sir. I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. G.S. Bajpai, and administration for providing us this wonderful opportunity. Their constant support has definitely contributed to the overall discourse of the event. I would also like to thank our faculty coordinators, Dr. Geetika Walia, Dr. Shruti Goyal, and Ms. Sonika for successfully organizing today's event. Lastly, I would like to thank all attendees for making it a fruitful and interactive session, and look forward to continued participation in other events organized by RGNUL. With that said, I would now like to bring the fourth day of the RTI workshop to an end. Thank you, stay safe and stay healthy. We will meet tomorrow at the same time. The participants and other attendees may leave the meeting.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you, all the participants. We'll be seeing you again tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Just 2 more days to go, and then it's going to be over. So just 2 more days. Kindly cope with us. I know it's been too hectic and too long, but then just 2 more days to go. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, sir. Ranga sir, thank you so much for joining.
Welcome,
It was
ma'am. Welcome,
actually
and
indeed a
thank you very much.
insightful lecture. So
Thank you.
on behalf of RGNUL, I would very like to thank you for sparing your valuable time.
Always welcome.
Yes. Kunal, can we end the meeting, beta?
No.